Hey, folks, this is True American Podcast. I usually do a lot of political things on this podcast, but it's also important for me, I feel, to talk to people who are doing great work in the community and what I would consider ministry work. As you know, some of you, I've interviewed Mona Page and talk about what she's doing for women in the community, homeless women in the community, and I've talked to other folks like her, and of course, this is a returning guest, Sister Beanie. Usually, I've talked to her in the past about her role in No Left Behind in education, but many of you, some of you may not know, she has a fantastic role at More Grace Academy. And in my view, it's a ministry, and I'm very pleased. I'm very glad that something like More Grace Academy exists. So today, I just want to talk to her about what she does there at More Grace and why she does it. Sis, thanks for joining with us today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Always happy to have a chance to talk about More Grace Christian Academy.
Well, okay, let's jump right into it. What is More Grace Christian Academy?
More Grace Christian Academy is a small Christian school that was started because families in the congregation of More Grace Church realized that their children weren't learning while they were on NTI. So this was, a couple of years ago that this happened. But then they also realized that even before NTI, even before COVID, their children were far behind. And not only were they far behind academically, but they were being exposed to violence and questionable curriculum and ideologies that did not line up with their values and beliefs. And so they urged Pastor Cecil Bly, to start a church. To start a school. He reluctantly did, but over time, we are seeing the blessings unfold, and it's really just a beautiful place. We have our youngest student is 4, our oldest student is 17, and it's really neat to see. Most of our students came to us about 2 years behind academically. They're all pretty well caught up at this point, and some are even doing work well above grade level at this point. So
are the majority of the families at More Grace Black?
They all are, as far as all of the students at our school are. I don't know about the church congregation itself, but all of our students are.
All right, and
not that, it's you don't have to be. It's open to anyone. So
right, I bring that up because again and again when I'm reading studies, I'm astounded at how far behind.
Yeah.
Black students usually are, particularly black males.
JCPS does not have a good track record for that right now, for sure.
Yeah, and the stats are there, and I mean the stats, the research is there. And I have to at least compliment JCPS in one way, in that they don't hide it. They just put the facts out there and say, "Yeah, sorry, we're not."
It's hard to hide the data. Yeah, it is
right.
hard for sure.
Not doing a good job in educating black students, particularly black males. Oh, okay. Well, thanks for telling me.
But what are you doing to change that? Yes.
Right. Exactly. And oddly enough, I find it interesting that families took the initiative to say, well, here's how we're going to deal with it. Here's how we're going to change it. Yeah. And so they approached the pastor and they said, man, we need a school. And the pastor said, I'm sure he said, oh my God, I got one more thing on my plate.
Nobody wants to start a school.
Right. It's expensive endeavor, very labor. I mean, my Lord.
It's a lot of work. It is a lot of work.
But as you're saying, you're seeing the benefits. You're seeing a return on that investment.
Unbelievable. It is just absolutely remarkable. And I was at a school choice event last night and got to hear some firsthand people who had benefited from school vouchers in their states. They're now young adults, and just hearing their stories and what a difference it made in their lives. And I'm just standing there almost in tears thinking, why in the world would any adult want to withhold this opportunity from children and families? And, because you don't have the means to move into a zip code where you can send your child to a safe school, although where is that anymore? I don't know. That shouldn't prevent you from being able to choose a good learning environment, a safe learning environment for your child. And that's why, you asked why did I help with More Grace Christian Academy? And I did not know Pastor Bly before 2020. when people ask me how we met, I just simply say God, because I honestly can't trace it back to how we met or why we met.
Mm-hmm.
But when I found out what he was doing, and I found out that there were families out there who were willing and interested in making sure their children got a better education, I said, well, I'm here to help. What can I do to help? And,
Mm-hmm.
I started there. I just wanted to read to them one day a week. I was like, well, I love kids. I'd love to read. Of course, wanted to support them, help them out financially and things like that. But that's how I started, was going there one day a week to read just for an hour. And then
Mm-hmm.
that led into me teaching civics for an hour. So I was reading for an hour and then teaching civics for an hour. And now I'm there 3 days a week. And I'm reading with them. I'm teaching civics and history, and I'm also helping them with their curriculum is the ACE curriculum. So they have PACEs, and so I help with that too. And it's the more I'm there, the more I want to be there, because these kids want to learn. They're so hungry for knowledge. They love when we learn about history. They get so excited about it, and that's really neat to see. And they also know what they've missed out on, and because of that, they feel like there's an urgency to get caught up.
At this school, how do you deal with does it ever come up? Now I teach chess all throughout Jefferson County and Jefferson County schools, and I one time had an interesting encounter where a student, little girl, was telling me. I referred to one of my students, said, "Hey, guy, good job, buddy," and a little girl said to me, "Coach, that's not a girl." No, wait a minute. She said, "Coach, that's not a boy, that's a girl." And I looked dead at him. I said, "No, that's a boy." I mean, dude, I've been a boy all my life. I know boys when I see boys. I was raised with little boys. I know a boy when I see a boy. So she was later complimented by the assistant teacher, saying, "Oh, well, I appreciate you being a good ally, but you don't need to be correcting Coach in that manner." But I was like, "Whoa, what's being taught here?"
Allyship. So we are a Christian school. We believe in biblical truths. And when we say that we believe in biblical truths, we believe God created man and woman, and that God created us perfectly the way that we are, and that we don't get to choose our gender or our sex, that's the way God made us, and that's how he intended it to be. We're a Christian school. We can do that. We don't have to change truth because of what culture says. And so we don't face that. Now, I will say that these children, they live in the real world. So they go to school at More Grace Christian Academy, but they live in the real world. So they know that that's happening in the world. And sometimes it comes up in conversation, but quite honestly, we're so busy doing academics throughout the day that very rarely do we get onto current event topics. A lot of times, if those topics do come up, I will say, you talk to pastor about this, or talk to your parents about this, because, and we've had these conversations enough to know that I believe their parents are the best people to turn to, or pastor for them, because I know that they look up to and respect pastor and his teachings as well. So,
okay, so a parent doesn't have to worry about whether or not More Grace respects their parental authority. They're not going to suddenly have Joe come home and say, "I'm Joette. I've transitioned."
Oh, no. I love these children dearly. I talk about them probably as much as I talk about my own children. I mean, I really do. At the end of the day, they're not my children. They're not. I mean, I would do anything for them to help them, to make sure that they are successful in their path and their journey. They're not my kids.
So you obviously respect parental authority. Are you also looking at, is there the teaching of social justice issues or activism, things like that?
Biblical justice. We teach biblical justice.
Okay.
Their curriculum is in line with biblical truths. It's in line with scripture. So we teach biblical justice. Certainly some of my older students, in fact, they were just asking me on Tuesday why there were no riots and things with the most recent police beating of that innocent young man, which was horrendous, heinous. total. I mean, I even told them, I said, don't watch the video. You don't need to see that. But they had, and they wanted to know why there weren't riots. And they started discussing that. And we dropped it. We were talking about the Boston Massacre, and it had nothing to do, well, that's why it came up, because we were talking about riots in the streets and that kind of thing. However, I did not interject my opinion. And, I'm like, you guys can go talk to pastor about that, or you can talk to your parents about that. I'm not teaching current events. I'm teaching history. Here's what happened during the Boston Massacre. Here's what propaganda can do. Here's how both sides can use propaganda to twist narrative and make it sound like what they want it to say. And so that was a good sort of discussion with that. I didn't chime in and give my 2 cents on why we haven't had riots in the streets with this most recent.
So it sounds like this school is focused on teaching reading, teaching math, teaching science, teaching academics.
Yeah, these, again, I mean, most of them were about 2 years behind academically when they came to us. We don't have time to solve the world's social justice issues. I mean, to me, and honestly, to me, I mean, equity is the big word. I know equitable outcomes is a big term for JCPS. And I'm here to tell you that there's no equity if these kids aren't literate and if they're not numerate. So if they graduate from More Grace Christian Academy and they can't read beyond a 4th grade level or 7th grade level, and they can't do math that's going to help them navigate this world, then there is no social justice. So, what are their options when they graduate? Okay, they'll go to college. Well, can they make it through college if they're not literate and numerate? No. Right. So they'll go to college and find out that their school failed them. And that is not our intention at all. Our intention is to create that solid foundation for them so that when they leave school, they are very capable of doing whatever it is that they pursue in life.
My mother was a teacher, and she didn't teach for very long, but I think she would, if she was alive today, she'd be shocked that I'd have to even ask the question at a school, are you teaching academics?
Yeah.
But it's gotten that point right now in the schools.
It absolutely has. And, I know people talk about, the NAEP scores, the National Assessment scores, and, well, that's not all that there is. And there's much more to it than that. There is, that's true. But those National Assessment scores do show the literacy and numeracy of students. And it does show that 2/3 of the students in JCPS are not literate. That's a problem. So, it doesn't really matter how they feel. In fact, I was listening to a Thomas Sowell. I know you're a big fan of Thomas Sowell. I was listening to a podcast where he was talking in 1993. He was talking about a comparison that they did with Korean students and US students. And the Korean students felt like they weren't very good at math. The US students felt like they were pretty good at math. The Korean students blew the US students out of the water as far as being able to do math. But the US students felt like they could do math. The Japanese students they asked didn't like math. The US students they asked liked math. The Japanese students were doing much harder math and doing it better. The US students weren't. Wow. So in the United States, we're very much concerned with how students feel about themselves and how students feel about the work they're doing and what, their emotions and their feelings. And you and I both know emotions and feelings are very easily manipulated. And it's like, teach them the knowledge that they need to have, give them that core knowledge, give them that foundation before you worry about them being critical thinkers about it. I mean, you can't think critically about something you don't know anything about. And at the end of the day, I've raised 4 children. I know sometimes people, think it sounds harsh, but I'm like, at the end of the day, you can't always make your decision based on how it makes them feel. My kids didn't feel good about a lot of the discipline that was applied to them. It served them well. They grew up to be responsible, independent adults. And, regardless of them feeling like I was mean sometimes, I just, and I am the same way in the classroom. I tell them, I'm like, I really don't care how you feel about this. This is the work you have to do. Whether you like it or not is beside the point. So, And they know I love them and they know I care about them, but they also know I'm going to make them do hard stuff because it's going to be good for them in the end.
Right. Folks, this is the True American Podcast. I'm talking to Sister Beanie. I've had her on the program before, and she's talking about More Grace Academy, the school. Great school. They actually teach math and reading and things of that nature. So sometime if if you ever want to, folks, you may want to try to get a hold of Sister Beanie and say, hey, can I talk to you a little bit more, or can I be introduced to Pastor Bly about this school? Sis, we don't have much time left, but what can people do to sort of support your ministry at this school?
Sure. Well, I am a volunteer teacher, and our math teachers who are there every morning from 8:30 to 10 are volunteers. We have a lot of volunteers that come in. Miranda Stovall is a wonderful volunteer. She helps out. So we're always looking for more volunteers. We like people, if you're gifted in science, or you're a great math teacher, or maybe you're an art teacher or something like that, or an artist, we're always looking for help like that. Of course, we're always accepting financial donations because we are a tuition-based school. However, some of our families can't pay the tuition, and so we do offer scholarships to them if it's need-based. So, but I would just encourage people to come and visit the school and see if there's some way that they can get involved. Like I said, I started out, 1 hour a week because I like to read to kids, and it was kind of a selfish endeavor to begin with. And these kids just grab your heart, and you want to be there with them. You want to spend time with them. You don't have to break up fights. You don't have to deal with people cussing each other out. You don't have to, these are kids who want to work hard. They want to succeed. And so I would just encourage anybody, if they're looking for a way to give back to the community, if you want to be incredibly blessed by these students, I would encourage you to volunteer. You can volunteer with the little ones if you'd rather have little ones, or I work with the middle and high school students. So, we kind of have all sorts of opportunities.
Where's the school located?
We are at 3134 Taylor Boulevard. So we are located in the Larchmont Church of God, I believe is what what it is. So,
what are some material donations would you think be helpful?
School supplies are always helpful: crayons, markers, paper, copy paper. The curriculum that they work on is pretty much self-contained, so we don't have to do a lot of that. Dry erase board markers are good. Food donations. So we do offer the kids breakfast, and then they get lunch there as well. So, any kind of muffins, bagels. The kids love frozen waffles, things like that are pretty easy. And then for lunch, Miss Ruby always tries to serve them a hot lunch. So, anything regarding that. We try to stay healthy. So, 100% juice and milk and things of that nature. And as you know, groceries are more and more expensive. So
it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It is.
I'm going to conclude with this. You're familiar with Corey Scholl, Pastor Corey Scholl. He's on the board. I read something. He said something about you. Basically, he was sort of trying to say in a very gentle way that you're a racist. And I said to myself, man, has he ever met her? Have you ever met him?
I have met him in passing. We've not really had a conversation. Yeah.
All right. Because I was trying to sort of connect that what you do and with what he said. And I said, this must be a new racist strategy, a new Ku Klux Klan strategy. Let's go volunteer at a black school, teach black students how to do better in math and reading and all. And then somehow.
Well, I will tell you, I did not volunteer at the school because they were black students. So before this, I was volunteering at my church. We were having an NTI lab where we had black and white students and other Spanish speaking students as well. And I just wanted to volunteer and help and make a difference in our community and do that. This school happened to open up. They happen to all be black. That is not why I am there. And it's like, I've been called a racist. I've been called a xenophobe. I've been called all kinds of names. And, my response to that is, if somebody calls you a name and you are, then be better, because there's no room for that in our society. But if you're not, then brush it off and move on. And honestly, Corey Scholl and I have had our differences. We definitely don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. And if he wants to put labels on me, then that's him. That's on him. That's not on me. I can't worry about that. I'm too busy doing other things. I just can't worry about that. So.
Well, what I'd like to say publicly to the pastor right now, I think you need to sit down and speak with this sister. First of all, she's a Christian. You're a Christian. You need to sit down and speak with this sister before you put out really just slanderous remarks about her like that. Just sit down with that sister and talk to her. And, I think that's really important, because the work that you're doing at More Grace and the work that, Pastor Bly's doing there is absolutely critical. It's vitally important. We all know, regardless of what our faith might be and our politics might be, JCPS is just not doing the job. Now, I'm not criticizing JCPS. I'm not putting them down. I'm not judging them, but the facts are facts. And then thank God we have some parents who stepped up and say, well, what are we going to do about it? Well, here's what we're going to do about it. And I think this is a great, this is a common sense way to handling that situation. And
right. Public schools are going to be around. They're not going to go anywhere. I would like to see Kentucky get some type of school voucher or education savings account. We'll have to change our constitution in order to be able to do that, so that for those families where public schools aren't working for them, that's not serving their students' needs, that schools like More Grace can become more prevalent, and more students can take advantage of it for those that do. And if you're happy in your public school, then stay put. But if you need out, then there should be options for you.
One of those options is More Grace. Give me your address again, sister.
It's 3134 Taylor Boulevard.
All right, look, we're going to end it here. This is True American Podcast. We just finished talking with a friend of the program, a great sister in the Lord. Please watch this, listen to this interview several times, watch it, and share it with some parents out there. Just get it out there. Let's share it with some parents out there. Sis, we're going to have to do it again, particularly talk about that one subject that you brought up before the show. We definitely need to talk on that a little bit. All right?
Sounds good.
I'll be seeing you.
Okay, thanks. Take care.